The scariest level of discipline I've ever seen did not look violent. It did not look cruel. It did not look illegal. It looked normal. That is what made it terrifying. At first glance, it resembled structure, order, responsibility. A system designed to help people succeed. No chains, no guards, no threats spoken out loud, just expectations. And expectations are far more dangerous than force. Force creates resistance. Expectations create obedience. This discipline didn't demand loyalty. It manufactured it. Not by pressure, but by rhythm. Wake up at the same time. Move at the same pace as everyone else. Measure your worth the same way they do. Repeat. Day after day, the rhythm became automatic. The body learned before the mind did. Eventually, people stopped noticing the rhythm at all. That's when it was complete. The scariest discipline does not punish disobedience harshly. It punishes it subtly. You are not screamed at. You are not attacked. You are simply left behind. And being left behind is unbearable to most people. So they adjust themselves. They wake earlier. They move faster. They complain less. Not because someone told them to, but because falling behind feels like failure, and failure feels like death. This discipline did not need to explain itself. Explanation invites debate. Debate invites resistance. Instead, it framed everything as obvious. This is just how it works. This is reality. This is what adults do. Once something is labeled reality, questioning it feels childish. So people swallow it. They internalize the rules. They enforce them on themselves. They even enforce them on others. That's when discipline mutates into culture. Culture does the work power never could. I watched people defend schedules that drained them, defend systems that exhausted them, defend routines that hollowed them out, not because they loved them, but because the alternative scared them more. Freedom without structure feels like falling, and this discipline made sure falling looked fatal. It rewarded compliance just enough to keep hope alive. A small promotion, a little recognition, a moment of validation, never enough to escape, always enough to endure. Hope, when controlled, becomes a leash. People chased progress the way animals chase light, never realizing the light was moving away from them. The discipline was patient. It did not rush. It did not need to. Time was its greatest weapon. Years passed. Dreams softened. Ambition shrank. Not violently, politely. Dreams were replaced with goals. Goals were replaced with targets. Targets were replaced with quotas. And quotas were replaced with survival. Once survival becomes the priority, discipline no longer feels imposed. It feels necessary. People stopped asking what they wanted. They asked what was required, and requirement became identity. I am busy. I am responsible. I am realistic. These words sounded like strength, but they were armor, heavy, rigid, and impossible to remove. This discipline did not exhaust people physically. It exhausted them mentally. Every decision was pre-made. Every path was pre-approved. Choice existed, but only inside narrow boundaries. And when choice is limited long enough, people stop imagining alternatives. Imagination is dangerous to systems like this, so it keeps people tired, not exhausted enough to collapse, just tired enough to comply, tired enough to accept. I saw people feel guilty for resting, anxious for stopping, ashamed for wanting more. That guilt was not natural, it was trained. Rest became laziness. Curiosity became distraction. Freedom became irresponsibility. Words were reprogrammed. Language is one of discipline's sharpest tools. Because once you control language, you control meaning. And once you control meaning, people will argue against their own instincts. The scariest moment wasn't when someone failed. It was when someone succeeded and still felt empty. They reached milestones they were promised would bring relief. But the relief never came. Only the next expectation. That's when the truth revealed itself. This discipline was not designed to fulfill people. It was designed to extract consistency. Consistency is more valuable than talent, more reliable than passion, easier to manage than creativity. Creative minds question. Consistent minds comply. So creativity was discouraged quietly, not banned, just starved. There was no rule against dreaming. Dreams were simply inconvenient, and inconvenience was punished with isolation. People who didn't fit the rhythm felt out of place. People who questioned the structure felt immature. People who slowed down felt weak. So they corrected themselves. The system barely had to intervene. That's the final stage of discipline, when power no longer needs to act, when the population maintains itself, when obedience is automatic. I saw people laugh at rebellion, not because it was wrong, but because it felt impossible. Grow up? That's unrealistic. That's not how the world works. The discipline had rewritten reality. Reality became whatever kept the system running, and anything else became fantasy. The most disciplined individuals were praised, not for wisdom, not for courage, but for endurance. Endurance became virtue. Suffering quietly became strength. Burnout became a badge of honor, and anyone who refused to suffer was seen as weak. This discipline didn't crush people. It reshaped them, slowly, carefully, irreversibly, until they no longer remembered who they were before. They only remembered schedules, deadlines, obligations, and the fear of losing them. Because losing the system meant losing identity, and identity loss feels worse than pain. That's why people stayed. That's why they complied. That's why they defended it. The scariest level of discipline I've ever seen was not enforced from above. It was sustained from below, by people who believed this was freedom, by people who believed this was normal, by people who believed there was no alternative. And once belief replaces force, control becomes absolute, not because people are trapped, but because they no longer try to leave. That is the scariest discipline of all, not the kind that breaks you, the kind that convinces you this is all you were ever meant to be.